Ask ChatGPT for an in-depth summary of Genesis in the NLT Bible version. Genesis is the first book of the Bible and the foundation of all Scripture. Its name comes from the Greek Genesis, meaning origin or beginning. It explains the creation of the world, the origin of humanity, sin, God's covenant promises, and the formation of the people of Israel and through the patriarchs of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Part 1. The Creation. Genesis 1 through 2. Genesis opens with God creating the universe by His Word. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1:1. God's creation unfolds over 6 days, culminating with humanity made in His image. So God created human beings in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. Genesis 1:27. On the seventh day, God rests, establishing the Sabbath principle. On the seventh day, God had finished His work of creation, so He rested from all His work. Genesis 2:2. Adam and Eve are placed in the Garden of Eden with freedom and fellowship with God. Part 2. The Fall and its Consequences. Genesis 3 through 5. Tempted by the serpent, Eve and Adam eat from the forbidden tree. The woman was convinced she saw the tree was beautiful and its fruit looked delicious, so she took some of the fruit and ate it. Genesis 3:6. Their disobedience brings sin and death into the world. By the sweat of your brow will you have food to eat until you return to the ground, for you were made from dust, and the dust you will return. Genesis 3:19. God, however, gives a prophetic promise of redemption. And I will cause hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. Genesis 3:15. The human story quickly spirals. Cain kills Abel, Genesis 4, and evil spreads across humanity. The flood and covenant with Noah, Genesis 6 through 9. God sees the corruption of humankind. The Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth. Everything they thought or imagined was constantly and totally evil. Genesis 6:5. Noah, however, finds favor. But Noah found favor with the Lord. Genesis 6:8. God commands Noah to build the ark and to preserve life through the coming flood. Afterward, God makes a covenant promise. I have placed my rainbow in the clouds. It is a sign of my covenant with you and with all the earth. Genesis 9:13. The rainbow symbolizes God's mercy and His commitment never to destroy the earth by flood again. Part 4. The Tower of Babel. Genesis 10 through 11. Human pride leads to the attempt to build a tower, quote, to reach heaven. Come, let's build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reaches into the sky. This will make us famous. Genesis 11:4. God confuses their language and scatters them across the earth. That is why the city was called Babel. Because that is where the Lord confused the people with different languages. Genesis 11:19. Genesis 11:9. This event explains the origin of the nations and sets the stage for God's call of one man, Abram. Part 5. God's covenant with Abraham. Genesis 12 through 25. God calls Abram, later Abraham, to leave his homeland with a great promise. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be blessed. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. Genesis 12:2. Despite many trials, famine, separation, and barrenness, Abraham trusts God. And Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith. Genesis 15:6. God makes an everlasting covenant with Abraham, promising descendants, land, and that through his lineage all nations will be blessed. Even when tested with Isaac's sacrifice, God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son. Genesis 22:8. God intervenes, reaffirming his covenant blessings. Part 6. Isaac and Jacob. Genesis 25 through 36. Isaac's story continues the covenant line. His wife Rebekah bears Esau and Jacob. God chooses Jacob, the younger son, to inherit the covenant. Jacob later wrestles with God and receives a new name. Your name will no longer be Jacob. From now on, you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with man you have won. Genesis 32:28. His 12 sons become the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel. Part 7. Joseph, God's providence in adversity. Genesis 37 through 50. Joseph, Jacob's favored son, is sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. So when the Ishmaelite traders came by, Joseph's brother pulled him out of the cistern and sold him for 20 pieces of silver. Genesis 37:28. Despite betrayal, false accusations, and imprisonment, God exalts Joseph to the power in Egypt. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. Genesis 45:5. In the end, Joseph forgives his brothers, showing God's redemptive plan even in suffering. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. Genesis 50:20. Genesis concludes with Joseph's death, but the covenant promise continues. Soon I will die, but God will surely come to help you and lead you out of this land of Egypt. Genesis 50:20. Genesis establishes many themes and theological insights. Number 1. God as a creator and sovereign. Everything begins and exists by his word and will. Number 2. Human sin and divine grace. Even in judgment, God shows his mercy and provides a path for redemption. Number 3. Covenant faithfulness. God's promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob establish the foundation of salvation history. Number 4. Providence and redemption. Through Joseph's story, Genesis teaches that God's purposes will triumph over human evil. Number 5. The seed of the woman. The thread of messianic hope, Genesis 3:15, points forward to Jesus Christ. In conclusion, Genesis lays the groundwork for understanding who God is and what went wrong with the world, and how God begins his plan to restore creation through the covenant promises. It starts with creation and ends with a coffin in Egypt, a reminder that the story of redemption is still unfolding beyond Genesis.